A first step and a rude reality for thousands of Department of Education employees. Layoffs for the agency started tonight, and that's about half of the department's workforce is now gone. The secretary says that the rest of the workforce is likely to follow soon.
Is this the first step on the road to a total shutdown?
Yes. Actually, it is, because that was the president's mandate, this directive to me. What we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is bureaucratic bloat. We wanted to make sure that we kept all of the right people and the good people to make sure that the outward-facing programs, the grants, the appropriations that come from Congress, all of that are being met, and none of that's going to fall through the cracks.
So Trump did, in fact, promise this, Bakari, and now he's following through. What do you think the impact is going to be?
I mean, I think that one of the things people fail to understand is actually how our public schools in this country are funded. People don't understand that we have a three-legged stool in the way that we fund our schools. You have your local tax dollars, your federal tax dollars, and your state tax dollars. And so when you make drastic cuts to the federal government, we're talking about your title programs, we're talking about your lunch programs, we're talking about the programs that affect your kids who have extraordinary or special needs. We're talking about all of those things that are going to be affected by draconian cuts such as this. If we want to go in and say that, look, and I think all of us could agree around the table that we're not preparing our kids for a 21st century global economy. If we wanted to start from that premise, and sorry to use, I'm not picking on you, but to use your words instead of whack, 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 whack. If we wanted to start from that premise and figure out how we can better educate our children, there are ways to do it other than draconian cuts. And I think in places like Mississippi, places like Arkansas, places like the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, South Carolina, North Carolina, they're going to feel these cuts a lot more.
May I respond?
Please. I mean, it's an open show.
As an individual who worked in the education system for 14 years, there's 110,000 high schools in America. The majority of them are in New York, Florida, Texas, and California. Our reading and math scores are the worst in the G7 and the G20 in terms of how many dollars we spend to advance our children.
Okay.
Why? Unions. Unions that keep mediocre teachers in place in every high school in America when we should be firing them. You want to talk about whack as our theme tonight's show? I would like to fire teachers that don't... Wait. And I'd like to pay a lot more to the teachers that advance math and reading scores that push our system forward against every G7, G20 country. We have broken the system long ago through unions, and this is very unpopular.
But what are those cuts actually
what it means is
the
lowest paid person in America that deserves a lot more money is a great teacher.
I agree, as a former teacher.
And we can't, in the system of unions in America, we keep mediocrity festering, destroying the education of children.
Let me just tell you how misguided your statement is.
Not at all.
But I mean, I'm just going to point out the fact that...
Thank goodness I'm here.
But you're wrong, and let me tell you why.
I'm 100% right.
No, I want to tell you why you're wrong. Because the bottom 10 states that are underperforming, those states that I'm talking about in the South, let's take South Carolina, for example, or Mississippi. You want to tell me one thing they don't have? One thing they don't have. Strong teacher unions. So there is no direct correlation.
They have weak teacher unions?
Or barely any at all.
They have unions.
Yeah, but that's not the reason these places are failing.
So find
when was the last time?
If you look at 10 teachers, 4 of them are great. I want to double their salaries.
That's no question. I agree with you.
So why don't you just get rid of unions?
Now what happens if you have a quarter of shame where kids go to school and their heating and air don't work, where their infrastructure is falling apart, where they have to drink unclean water, or they come to school hungry?
Send the money to the states. That's what Trump is doing.
How does that fix the problem I just laid out to you?
Well, you got to fix the unions first, because we both agree bad teachers destroy advancement of children.
So I just have a question. Are you saying that the cuts to the Department of Education that happens right now are going to impact the unions?
I would rather the dollars that are put into running.
I know, but you started talking about something else, but we're talking about the cuts to the Department of Education. I don't think those are directly...
No. You're cutting out the federal mandate.
Kentucky, South Carolina, North Carolina, they're going to feel these cuts a lot more.
May I respond?
Please. I mean, it's an open show.
As an individual who worked in the education system for 14 years, there's 110,000 high schools in America. The majority of them are in New York, Florida, Texas, and California. Our reading and math scores are the worst in the G7 and the G20 in terms of how many dollars we spend to advance our children.
Okay.
Why? Unions. Unions that keep mediocre teachers in place in every high school in America when we should be firing them. You want to talk about whack as our theme tonight's show? I would like to fire teachers that don't... Wait. And I'd like to pay a lot more to the teachers that advance math and reading scores that push our system forward against every G7, G20 country. We have broken the system long ago through unions. And this is very unpopular.
But what are
Yeah, but
those
can I
cuts
just-
actually
can I-
What it
today
means is
impact unions?
the lowest paid person in America that deserves a lot more money is a great teacher.
I agree, as a
and
former
we
teacher.
can't, in the system of unions in America, we keep mediocrity
Can
festering,
I just
destroying the education of
respectfully? Let me
children.
just tell you how misguided your statement is.
Not at all.
But I mean, I'm just going to point out the fact
Thank
that.
goodness I'm here.
But you're wrong, and let me tell you why.
I'm 100% right.
No, I want to tell you why you're wrong. Because the bottom 10 states that are underperforming, those states that I'm talking about in the South, let's take South Carolina, for example, or Mississippi. You want to tell me one thing they don't have? One thing they don't have. Strong teacher unions. So there is no direct correlation.
They have weak teacher unions?
Or barely
But
any
they
at
have
all.
unions.
Yeah, but that's not the reason these places are failing.
So find
when was
me,
the last time?
if you look at 10 teachers, 4 of them are great. I want to double their salaries.
That's no question. I agree with you.
So why don't you just get rid of
Now,
unions?
what happens if you have a quarter of shame where kids go to school and their heating and air don't work, where their infrastructure is falling apart, where they have to drink unclean water, or they come
Send
to
the
school
money
hungry?
to the states. That's what Trump
How
is
does
doing.
that fix the problem I just laid out to you?
Well, you got to fix the unions first, because we both agree bad teachers destroy advancement of
So
children.
I just have a question. Are you saying that the cuts to the Department of Education that happens right now are going to impact the unions?
I would
'Cause don't
rather the
actually think-
dollars that are put into running
I know, but
the
you
federal
started
mandate.
talking about something else, but we're talking about the cuts to the Department of Education. I don't think those are directly.
No. You're cutting out the federal mandate and giving it to
Hey YouTube, good morning and happy Sunday. So today I wanted to bring a video to you guys regarding the defunding of the Department of Education. So I'm going to insert a clip. You should have already seen it, should have been at the beginning of this video. And the clip is the person that Donald Trump appointed to head the Department of Education. She's having a conversation with Laura Ingraham. She's a Fox host, and they're having a conversation regarding the Department of Education and their plans basically to defund the Department of Education. So when they say they want to defund the Department of Education, basically what they're saying is that they want to send it back to the states. So the states will be responsible for allocating money. The states will be responsible for basically controlling how the schools are being ran, and all of those things, the allocation of funds, how the curriculum is going, everything. The states will then be responsible for everything, and basically the federal government will be taken out of the process. And I find that to be very, very controversial. And I think what they are doing is not well thought out, and I'll tell you why. If you look at the 10 poorest states, if you look at the 10 states with the worst school systems, though I think 8 or 9 of the 10 are red states. They're your Mississippis, they're your Alabamas. There are ruby red states that are not performing well from a perspective of schools, health, in a lot of different ways. So when they say poorest states, they're basically the states that are not performing well in very different areas. Whether, like I said, whether it's health, is maternal mortality, if it's the school system, those are the states that are struggling the most. And I believe 8 or 9 of the 10 are red states. And so those are states that went for Donald Trump that are going to be negatively affected and harm the most. And so when they say they want to defund the Department of Education, there are so many speculations, but one speculation that I'm starting to understand and agree with is that the Republicans want a permanent underclass. Because, and these are statistics, this is not me being mean, this is not me being combative or confrontational or controversial. These are statistics, you can look them up. Trump and people who normally vote Republican, not all, nothing in life is monolithic, not all, but a lot of these ruby red states, people who voted for Donald Trump and people who vote Republican are poorly educated. It's the reason that Donald Trump has famously said he loves the poorly educated, because the poorly educated normally vote Republican. Not all races, not all genders, not all, but if you look at statistics, poorly educated people normally vote Republican. And I believe that because it seems as if Republicans are the only people who call to defund the Department of Education, and they almost have a antagonistic approach or antagonistic ideal towards education. They feel like people who are highly educated are normally like snobs, or they liberal, they think they're better than people. And so when they first started talking about defunding the Department of Education, I'm like, why? Like, what would be the reasoning? Our country, unfortunately, we are already falling behind, and we're already not doing well in regards to reading and math and test scores. So why would you take funding from the Department of Education? Remember when there was this big thing about defunding the police, and Republicans and right-wing people were out of their mind about the idea of defunding the police. And defunding just means reimagining. It doesn't mean we want to take every single dollar out of, and I wasn't necessarily for defunding the police. I didn't like the way it sounded, because it did optically, in the way that it sounds as if you're saying that we need less police, and that's not the case at all. I believe that the police is fine. We need less racist police. We need less police with biases, but to eliminate or think that we don't need police is asinine. I never agreed to that. I never subscribed to that. I never signed on for that. I was just like, no, we absolutely need police. We need police to stop killing black people. We need that as well. So we need a lot of training. We need a lot of police that are not biased, not racist. And I'm going to tell you something, because I think a lot of times when people hear that police are racist, and I know this is getting off a little bit, but I just wanted to make this point. Unfortunately, you'll have black police officers that will sometimes treat you worse than white police officers. I've had experiences. So it's the culture of the police, because their job is supposed to be to diffuse the situation, to calm the situation, and try to assess the situation and then take action. Their job is not to arrive on the scene and kind of inflame things worse and make things worse and make things even more confrontational and aggressive. That's not their job. And so I think there needs to be some training. I think there needs to be a lot of different things, but to just say we want to take money from the police as if we don't need police, that's asinine. We absolutely need police. We kind of sort of live in a civilized society, and we need to keep it that way. So we absolutely need police, but we need to reimagine how police looks now. And this is somebody whose stepfather is a police officer. Okay, so there's that. But regarding defunding the Department of Education, so there were two conversations that I witnessed this weekend with people who are, because this woman that Trump appointed, her name is Linda, I believe, and she used to be like a part of WWE, like some wrestling, whatever. I'm not into wrestling, so I don't know this woman. But Linda McMahon is maybe her name. I don't know. But you guys are going to see the clip. But this is a woman that's a billionaire. She has no experience in the Department of Education. I believe she lied about having a degree in education. Her degree is actually in French, like the language French. So, but you know, Trump, these are the type of people that he has appointed into his cabinet. And so she's talking about defunding the Department of Education. There was also a conversation on Abby Tonight, and I'm going to try to find the clip and insert that clip as well, where you had Kevin O'Leary, and he was basically talking about defunding the Department of Education. And he was saying like, oh, there's teachers that are really horrible, and they're like mediocre teachers, and we're keeping them employed, and that's why the kids are not learning. No. It's so many different reasons. There's different levels as to why our children are not performing at the level that they should perform. But the fact that he believes is just because the teachers are horrible is so asinine. First of all, poverty is a real thing. When kids are at school and they're worried about being hungry and starving, that is an element as well. When you have kids that are in school that they have to share books, I remember because I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, there was times when I didn't have my own book. So you go to math class and you literally have to sit next to someone and share a book. That is a issue as well. So to say that you want to take money and resources from a department that is our Department of Education that is already struggling, and poor kids are doing worse, because unfortunately in this country you are treated very differently depending on the zip code in which you grow up in. You're not given the same opportunities. You don't have the same resources. You don't have the same schools. You don't have the same books. Like, there are so many different things that factor into a poor child not performing. To say, yes, we should just take more money and resources from these already struggling, poor, and disenfranchised kids is, to me, is asinine. And I want Republicans to know, because maybe they're not aware, the people that are going to be harmed the most, that's going to be negatively affected the most, are people from these poorer states, your red states, your Alabamas, your Mississippis. Those are the states, and I'm not saying that they're only red. I'm pretty sure there's blue districts and whatever the case, but those are the people that's going to be harmed the most. And because you have to think about it, the big liberal states, your California, your New York, your Chicago's, those states have pretty good education systems, and they have higher, like in regards to their universities, those people are educated. So if the goal is to make the liberals cry or to hurt the liberals, defunding the Department of Education is not necessarily going to do that. It's going to harm red states. It's going to harm poor people. It's going to harm the people who voted for Donald Trump. And so I just think that when I think about it, it's like, first of all, I think that it's a pretty disturbing thing to do. I think it's pretty destructive, but I think who they think they're going to harm, because unfortunately in this country, we've gotten to the point where our policies is almost like, when Donald Trump speaks, he speaks to the people who voted for him. So he's supposed to be the president for all of us, but he's advocating, he's talking to, and he's speaking to people who voted for him. But if your goal is to help people who voted for you, to make sure people who voted for you are successful or they have a great life, defunding the Department of Education is not going to do that. Because again, your poorest states are, I think 8, like I said, I think 8 or 9 of the 10 are red states. So sending, and I know that there's a lot of issues, because like I said, regarding reading and math, our country is not doing as well as it should. But if you talk to people, even if you respond to some comments on YouTube, you know that defunding the Department of Education, nothing good can come from that. Like, seriously, we need education in this country more than we probably, healthcare and education, we need those two things to be as accessible as possible. Like, we don't need to defund education. There's things that need to be defunded, but education is not one of them. So I just wanted to bring this video to you guys. I mostly want you guys to look at this clip. And like I said, I'm going to try to find that Kevin O'Leary clip, because he's a billionaire and he thinks like a billionaire. It's only about cost and what's effective and efficient. He didn't consider for 1 minute the people that's going to be harmed, the children that are going to be harmed. When you talk about defunding something, you're taking resources and money. So now kids, poor kids that come to school, and their breakfast and their lunch that they get at school may very well be the only meals that they get. If you defund and you take money out of those schools, those kids may not get those meals. And he had no, like, it's almost as if that never occurred to him, or either that or he just didn't give a fuck. He just didn't care. So Ashley, one of the panelists, she brought up to him, it's like, these kids come to school sometimes to eat. That's how they get their food. And he was just like, well, the teachers suck. So you're in favor of starving children. This is the reason that it's difficult to have these conversations, because I think sometimes people don't think past go. They don't have consideration. They're not thinking about the harm that they're going to do to kids that are already poor, that already are not reading at grade level. They don't think about it from that perspective. And that's the reason why I say it's so dangerous for people to try to run the government the way you run a business. When you're dealing with business, you're dealing with people as well. But the government is supposed to take care of its citizens. The job is almost like do no harm. Like, you're supposed to take care of Americans because we pay taxes. You're supposed to take care of people, and you're supposed to do no harm. So this whole ideal of, well, I mean, the teachers suck and the kids are not reading at grade level, so we should just take all the money away. So what happens to those poor children that already wasn't reading at grade level and now they don't have food? Like, have you ever stopped to consider those kids at all? And it never seems like people like Kevin O'Leary or this Linda McMahon or whatever her name is, this woman, it seems like they never think that far, because you have to think about it. These people don't know what it's like to miss a meal, and not miss a meal because you're dieting, miss a meal because you don't have food. You don't have money to get food. So when you're dealing with the government, you can't think of it like a business. Like, oh, well, you know, we just gonna cut it, slash it, cut it. Because Kevin O'Leary in his clip, he kept, well, we need to whack this and we need to cut this and we need to cut that. And it's like, have you once stopped and thought about the kids that are going to be harmed in the process of you trying to treat the government like it's just a regular business? It's not a business. It's not supposed to be treated like a business. So I wanted you guys to take a look at the clip. Tell me what you guys think about defunding the Department of Education. My personal opinion, just on a very surface level, I think it's asinine. I think it's ridiculous. I think the government needs to fund schools, of course. I think there needs to be federal oversight. I don't think everything needs to be sent back to the states. I think it's going to be straight chaos. And then think about this as well. This is my last point, but think about this. You're going to have kids in Mississippi that will not have the access, the resource. I mean, that's I'm sure that's the case now, but not have the access, the resources, nothing that kids in New York have. Kids in New York, where there's more money, you have people who make a lot of money, people who pay property taxes, people who are funding these schools. The schools are going to be better. And then you have someone in Mississippi that will never have the opportunities that a kid in Mississippi will never have the opportunities that a kid in New York has. That's not America. In America, no matter where you live, you're supposed to have access to resources and opportunities. And now we're saying state by state. It depends on what state you live in, how well you're educated. Or it depends on what state you live in, how well you eat. And that is the case now, but it's going to get a lot worse when we start defunding Department of Education and all of these different departments. It's going to get worse. And that's not fair to kids in Mississippi. It's not fair to kids in Alabama. It's not fair to kids in West Virginia. It's not fair to these children that they have no choice in how they're growing up. They are the products of their parents. If their parents don't have money or resources, they're already struggling, and they're going to struggle even worse. And I think that's pretty disturbing and pretty disgusting. So that's my perspective. You guys comment and let me know what you think. Again, happy Sunday. Hopefully you guys are having a phenomenal day, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye. Oh, like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.